Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from the Loire Valley. This is actually from the Saumur Region, although it's labelled as a Vin de France. This is Chateau de Fosse-Seche's Eolithe 2020. Now, Fosse-Sèche has a wonderfully rich history, dating back probably about 800 years to medieval times. And for a long period, the estate was owned by the monks of the priory of Saint Pierre de Montreuil-Bellay. And if you visit the property today, evidently there are many sort of ancient fragments still remaining. There are some wonderful old masonry tanks that are supposedly some of the oldest in France. There's an old chapel, there's an old dovecote, there are walls to an old castle, there's an old standalone oven, and all of these come from different phases in the property's history. Also significant in the history of Fosse-Sèche is the fact that in 1905 somebody called Paul Taveau experimented with the development of a rosé wine, and the wine that he produced was Rosé d'Anjou. So the first rosé appellation for the Loire Valley originated on the site at Fosse-Sèche here. Current proprietors, Guillaume and Adrien Piri, are twin brothers. They first came here in 1998. Prior to that, they, with their mother and stepfather, had been living on a vineyard in Madagascar. In 1996, they returned to France and they set out on a 2-year trip around France, trying to search out a vineyard to buy. And evidently they came to Fosse-Sèche, fell in love with the place, and have been here ever since. Ever since 2012, Guillaume and Adrien have run the estate jointly, Guillaume being the winemaker and Adrien the viticulturist here. The estate has 14 hectares of vines, so 8 of those are of Cabernet Franc with 1 hectare of Cabernet Sauvignon, and then for the whites 5.5 hectares are Chenin Blanc, and there's a further 0.5 hectare of Chardonnay. Throughout Saumur, the vineyards almost exclusively have soils based on tuffeau, which are soft limestone used around here in the construction of cellars and houses. However, Fosse-Sèche is an exception to this. Being at the very end of the Brossais Plateau, the soils here are predominantly silex soils. They're Jurassic flint soils. There's absolutely no limestone, and the soil is high in iron oxide, so you have this crushed flint gravel with high iron content, giving it a red colour. The vineyard here is concave, so you have a situation where cooling winds come in, so it's quite a cool site, but actually the stone in the soil, the flint, collects heat, reflects it back to the plant very well. So you get a combination of good conditions for ripening and yet the ability to maintain freshness here. The Piris believe in cultivating organically and biodynamically, and they're certified for both. Their biodynamic certification was earned in 2013. They keep yields very low. I'm not sure what the yield was in 2020, but I've seen other vintages of this where the yields are something like 27 hectolitres per hectare. This is not an expensive wine, so that's quite a low yield for a wine in its price range. The wine is predominantly Cabernet Franc. It's 99% Cabernet Franc, and there's just 1% of Cabernet Sauvignon in the blend here. In the run-up to harvesting, the brothers very carefully monitor the fruit, and they do this by tasting. So they'll regularly go into the vineyard, taste the berries, and they're looking for a lovely perfumed fruit, but also ripe tannins. And once they get that balance, that's when picking happens. Cuvation goes on for 3 to 15 days, so not a particularly long period of maceration going on here. And the wines are then aged in non-blot concrete eggs. So the non-blot is the producer. These are 3-ton concrete eggs, of which the estate has 11. The wine ages for 14 months in these, and the concrete of these eggs is slightly porous, so you get a very gentle oxidation going on through this period, but you get absolutely no wood effects whatsoever. So they're able to maintain the freshness of the fruit into the wine. So let's see what we make of it, shall we? Looking at the colour, that's at best a medium ruby red. Swirling the wine, it only has 12.5% alcohol, so we're not looking at something particularly high in alcohol. The wine is eventually sticking to the sides of the glass. I am seeing some tears, but they're not particularly pronounced. Let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? The wine has very attractive, high-toned, perfumed Cabernet Franc aromas. I mean, Cabernet Franc is famous for being wonderfully perfumed, but this is something quite special. There's sort of lifted notes of peonies, violets, that sort of lovely lifted purple perfumed fruit. There's perhaps a touch of spice. There's no oakiness, obviously. But yes, there's a wonderful concentration of those lifted perfumes, and perhaps underlying that, quite a ripe, deep, plummy fruit. So let's taste. From the outset, that's a fresh, elegant wine. It's got lovely acidity, that's making my mouth water. It's light to medium bodied. There's such a lovely, juicy, almost sort of red cherry, sharp, ripe red plum sort of notes there. There are some slightly high-toned perfume touches, and there are just hints of leafiness here. But often Cabernet Franc can be quite sort of unripe and be showing green leaf aromas, and that's certainly not the case here. It's really just a slight complement to the quite high-toned floral perfumes that are here. There's quite a nice intensity and depth to the wine. There's good roundness. I mean, if you consider this is only 12.5%, there's actually quite a concentration in the mid-palate. But because it's not a huge wine, there's a really lovely long supple finish that sort of goes straight from the mid palate into this sort of rich plummy note coming through, slightly more red cherry notes on the finish, and there's a good freshness, perhaps a tiny touch of pepperiness on the finish, but not a huge amount, and that may actually be the slightly drying fine tannins at the very finish there that I'm detecting. But this is not a hugely structured wine. There is a fine structure that sits alongside the acidity, and there's a good concentration of, really good concentration of fruit actually. The flavours are lasting so long, but they're fresh, delicate, perfumed flavours. It's not a heavy, dull, rich fruit. There's lovely richness, but it's a richness with vivacity. So yes, that was Fosse-Sèche's Eolithe 2020. That's a Vin de France. I have no idea why this wine is labelled as a Vin de France. Sometimes a producer might put one of their wines to be a Vin de France if it fails to reach the standards of an AC in some particular way. This, on the other hand, I would suggest excels all the standards that you're going to get for an AC, in terms of that it will have higher yields than the minimum. It will probably have longer aging than, if there is an aging requirement, the minimum. So I really don't know why the producers have taken this out of the Saumur designation. I did wonder whether the fact it's a blend might have precluded it, but no, you're quite allowed to put Cabernet Sauvignon into Saumur wines. So I don't know if there's a production practice they're using that's not allowed in Saumur, but it could possibly be that they just feel that their wine sits outside the normal level of wines made in Saumur. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the video interesting. If you've enjoyed it, do please press the like button. Please feel free to share the video with your friends. If you think they're interested, it'd be great for you to pass it on. Do also feel free to sign up and join us on YouTube. Follow us, get regular updates as to when we're publishing again, and then perhaps we'll see you again in the really near future. Do join us. Thanks again. Bye for now.